The bad news, as you will learn as you go forth, is that smart people are a dime a dozen, and they don't usually amount to much. What really matters is those who are creative, those who are imaginative. So the 3 stories I'm going to tell you are simply 3 stories that talk about the need for imagination, that ability to think different. With Steve Jobs, when he was 6 years old, he and his father built a fence around the backyard of their house. And his father told him, we have to make the back of the fence just as beautiful as the front of the fence. Steve made me walk the neighborhood, touch the fence, go look at the back of the fence. And Steve said, why? Nobody will ever see it. Nobody will ever know. His father, who was an auto mechanic, high school dropout, said, yes, Steve, but you will know. People who really care about making things great care about even the parts unseen. And for Einstein, it was getting a compass when he was a kid. His father gave him a compass when he was 6 or 7 years old, and he watched as the needle twitched and pointed north. And he becomes totally mesmerized by this. The needle just, nothing's touching it. Why is a physical object moving like that when nothing physical is touching it? What is a force field? What's an electron? And he spent years, his whole life, worrying about why does that work? How does electromagnetism and gravity interact with particles? But Benjamin Franklin had that passionate curiosity, but he also had a sense of tolerance. He's the one when Congress creates a committee to declare why we're fighting the war of independence. But it's got Ben Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson on it. And he's the one who helps edit that wonderful second sentence, where Jefferson begins by saying, we hold these truths to be sacred. And you see Franklin's black printer's pen, self-evident, he writes, because he wants to make the point that our rights come not from the dictates of religion, but from rationality and reason and consent of the governed. Balanced notions like the role of divine providence with the role of rationality and reason in securing our rights. This notion of coming together and using things to bring us together. Einstein, even on his deathbed, 1955, an order had burst. He knew he wasn't going to live. He had declined an operation to the hospital, Princeton Hospital. He asked that his papers that were on his desk be brought to him. And on that last day, he just writes line after line of mathematical equations. Between people visiting him, he kept writing 9 full pages. You can go not too far from here to the Einstein papers at Caltech. And there they are, and you can see them. Line after line of equations that still wonder, how would you create a unified field theory that would connect gravity, electromagnetism, particles? In other words, why does that needle keep twitching and pointing north? At the very end, you can see when the pain becomes too great, he writes just one last line of equations that dribbles off that page that he thought would get him and the rest of us just one step closer to what he called the spirit manifesting the laws of the universe. And as for Steve Jobs, it was about 2 years ago when I think he realized he might not outrun the cancer. Now, I was with him in Palo Alto and I was asking him, what do you see as your legacy? What do you see as a meaning? And he said, part of it is my Zen Buddhist training and part of it is what I've watched in life, is that life is sort of like the flow. It's like a flow of a river. It's like history and how it flows. And we get to take really, really cool things out of that flow. We get to take things people have invented, educational theories they've come up with, theories of relativity, how to make a transistor, even great products that people have invented, buildings that people have built, that we get to take from the flow of history. But your legacy is not how much you accumulate and take out of that flow. Your legacy is what do you put back into that flow? That maybe afterwards there'll be a few people who say, oh yeah, that was cool. I get to use that thing that Steve Jobs or any of us might have put back in the flow of history. Let me say that they all had something more than these three little tales, three little traits. They all had one trait that they shared. They all realized that they were part of something larger than themselves. So when you leave here, read the gate and make sure that you too both follow your passion, but connect that passion to something greater than yourselves.